A bit longer term and over a period of time, I know we're going to have a fantastic success with respect to Chairman Kim in North Korea. They're going to have an economic powerhouse. I've been writing about it. I've been talking about it. I think it's going to be an economic powerhouse. And it's something I very much look forward to helping with, because with a little bit of help in the right location, in the right place, I think it's going to be something very special. Please.
네, 대단히 감사합니다. 오늘 다시 함께하게 되어서 매우 기쁘게 생각합니다. 또 앞으로 오늘 말고도 많이 만날 거라고 생각이 됩니다. 그리고 또 어떠한 합의가 이룬 후에도 우리는 계속 만남을 지속할 것입니다. 우리는 어제 만찬 중에 그리고 또 만찬 전에 상당히 좋은 여러 가지 아이디어를 주고받았습니다. 우리 가장 중요한 것은 우리 양국의 관계가 굉장히 강하다라는 것입니다. 또 관계가 좋으면 좋은 일이 많이 일어날 것입니다. 오늘뿐만 아니라 중기적으로 장기적으로 우리는 상당히 성공을 이룰 것이라고 생각합니다. 김 위원장 그리고 또 북조선에 대해서 제가 여러 번
We are waiting for the translation from the Korean. This is, of course, a live picture of the president and the North Korean dictator on stage.
많은 합의를 이루기를 기대하겠습니다.
I've been saying very much from the beginning that speed is not that important to me. I very much appreciate no testing of nuclear, rockets, missiles, any of it. Very much appreciate it. And Chairman Kim and I had a great talk about that last night. I'd let him say what he said if he'd like to, and if he doesn't have to. But we had a very good talk about that last night. And again, I am in no rush. We don't want the testing, and we've developed something very special with respect to that. But I just want to say I have great respect for Chairman Kim, and I have great respect for his country, and I believe that it will be something economically that will be almost hard to compete with for many countries. It has such potential. Okay?
네, 처음부터 제가 얘기했습니다마는 그 속도가 가장 중요한 것은 아니다라고 나는 생각합니다. 또 중요한 것은
That's something that almost nobody 6 months ago would have thought possible, and it's happening live on your screen. That's it for our hour. We're going to hand it over to Sean Hannity, who's in Hanoi tonight. Sean?
All right, Tucker, we're going to go to the Fox News Alert. We're going right back to the beginning of the summit in historic Hanoi, Vietnam.
저는 그냥 서두를 그런 생각은 없습니다. 하지만 우리가 굉장히 특별한 것을 지금 하고 있다. 특별한 관계를 가지고 있다라고 생각하고 김 위원장과 또 북조선에 많은 존경심을 가지고 있습니다. 내가 보기에 북조선이 가진 그런 잠재력은 어느 나라와도 경쟁할 수 없을 만큼 그런 특별하고 강한 그런 잠재력이라고 생각합니다. 됐습니다. 다 끝났습니다.
우리한테 시간이 귀중한데 시간을 좀 편안하게 주시고 우리 이야기.
Thank you all very much. We're going to start a discussion now with our teams, and thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Are you hopeful? Thank you.
No rush. No rush. There's no rush. We just want to do the right deal. Chairman Kim and myself, we want to do the right deal.
옳은 그 합의를 이루어야 된다.
What's important is that we do the right
중요한
deal.
것은 옳은 합의를
Thank you all very much.
Thank you guys. Kim, are you confident?
김 위원장님 자신 있으십니까?
적당하긴 이다고 생각합니다.
Well, it's too early to tell.
예단하긴 않겠지.
But I wouldn't say that I'm pessimistic.
그러나 나의 직감으로 보면 좋은 결과가 생길 거라고 믿습니다.
But from what I feel right now, I do have a feeling that good results would come out.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I want you to send Chairman Kim a picture.
Thank you, President.
You want to come up?
Right this way.
You want to come up?
All right, as you can see, President Trump and Kim Jong-un of North Korea, as you can see, just fed live here in Hanoi, Vietnam, and we have a lot going on tonight. Now, this obviously building on the first summit that took place in Singapore, where in the lead-up to that summit, remember, that President Trump, after many, many, many months of rockets being fired over Japan, the threatening of Guam, the entire Korean peninsula, and even threatening the continental United States, those rockets have stopped. In the meantime, in the interim, hostages released, and the remains of American brave soldiers have been sent home. What are the expectations for tonight? Well, nobody really knows. We do expect that there's going to be a joint signing coming up later tonight, and this meeting is scheduled to go on for about 40 minutes, and when it wraps up, we will be bringing you the reaction live. We'll also have an interview with the president that will air tomorrow night, immediately following this show tonight. Just here for a quick roundup of what you just heard, what we can expect. We have Fox News contributors Dan Hoffman, Dan Bongino. Dan Hoffman, by the way, has been appointed to President Trump's Intelligence Advisory Board, along with Fox News chief national correspondent and Salem Radio America First host Sebastian Gorka, holding down the fort back in D.C. First, congratulations. How many years? You have been in the intel community for how many years? 30?
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
Amazing. And you scare the living daylights out of all of us when we travel. What's so amazing about this, and I'll get to the whole political side of things later, but what's amazing about this is about long-term safety security for not just the Korean Peninsula, but for the entire area, our allies, better relations with China. There's a lot of good that has already come out of it, and a lot more good that can come out of it. And more importantly, when you're talking about hitting the continental United States, Boston, New York, with a nuclear weapon, and what we were hearing before the first summit, this would be, if this can get accomplished, this would be major history.
You know, just for a little bit of perspective, India and Pakistan, two sworn enemies, nuclear armed, are shooting down each other's fighter aircraft. And the last thing we want to do is miss this opportunity that the president has created to dial down the tension in our relationship with North Korea and put us on that path towards arms control as a pit stop and then denuclearization.
Yeah, and Dan Bongino, we'll get to the politics, but more importantly, the prospects of this, and that's why the petty politics going back in Washington, where I can't imagine if Republicans, while President Obama were overseas negotiating something as important as the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, and Republicans put on this cartoon back in Washington, whatever you want to call circus, it was, I know the outrage would be immediate, it would be universal, but stay focused on what this could accomplish, what we expect.
Well, we have a lot of leverage right now, and I think President Trump gets that. I think his business background and getting out of that foreign policy D.C. bubble, being an outsider to politics, helps him. We have leverage, Sean. They're starving. Remember, the North Koreans need something we can provide: hard currency, economic growth. As I've said repeatedly here, it's not just that they can't feed their people. I sincerely doubt Kim cares about that, but what he does care about is the ability with a verifiable, viable currency to pay his military. If you can't keep your military happy, it does you no good as a tyrant, as Maduro's finding out now in socialist Venezuela, which is collapsing in front of his very eyes, and they've had mass defections. They need hard currency. That's the reason the symbolism of Vietnam matters to Trump, and I think it was a genius idea to bring Kim here to say, hey, look what can happen when we normalize relationships a bit. It was a smart move on his part.
The most important thing I think has to come out of any real deal that's going to be meaningful at Henry is it's got to be verifiable. It's got to be inspections on demand. Absolutely. It's got to be no closed off areas, and they've got to show some real progress in terms of taking down the nuclear threat.
They do, but what Democrats don't want to admit is there's been progress already, and that President Trump inherited this problem from Barack Obama. When President Trump came to office, the threshold that was crossed by the North Koreans that led President Trump to take all this heat for talking about Little Rocket Man and fire and fury raining down from the U.S. military was because Kim Jong-un had passed the threshold of getting a miniature nuclear weapon and putting it in a missile. And as you said at the top of the show, could potentially reach Boston, New York, Chicago. That's real. That is remarkable.
They were saying it.
They were saying it, but they were testing. They were testing, getting to the point where it appeared that they could get a miniaturized nuclear weapon into a missile and reach the shores of the United States. You can't get more serious than that. And instead, the opposite has happened. They're now at the peace table, and tensions have been ratcheted down. It doesn't mean that President Trump has solved this. You're right. We need it to be verifiable. They need denuclearization, where inspectors go in and see what North Korea has and actually make sure that it ratchets down. But let's remember how much progress the president's already made.
Great point, and obviously they've got to be building on it, or I don't think the president, and I have a lot of respect for the Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, would even be here. You mentioned about real difficulties. How do you maintain an army if they're not being fed well? The real carrot seems to be, hey, America's going to help open up the trade, and lift economic sanctions, which have not been lifted.
Right.
And this is going to be wealth, opportunity, energy, trade. You know, all these opportunities will now come to the North Korean people. That is probably in the long-term best interest, not only of the people, but if Kim Jong-un wants to survive, his long-term interest. And I want to go off something also Ed Henry said, and that is, you know, think of what we played last night. Little Rocket Man, Fire and Fury, my button's bigger than yours, and my button actually works. And everybody politically on the left, oh no, it's like the evil empire. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, and he's gonna create a nuclear holocaust. Just the opposite happens when you're not bribing dictators. We know that Kim Jong-un's father, Kim Jong-il, was bribed by Bill Clinton and the mullahs in Iran.
Yeah, 94. And you know what's fascinating about it is Trump keeps emphasizing there's no rush as the liberal media jumps all over him. But Sean, you remember well, Reykjavik with Reagan. Liberal media, oh, what a failure. It was an abomination with Gorbachev.
He walked away from the table.
Over a word. They didn't agree to laboratory testing over SDI at the time.
Strategic defense, right.
Yeah, what they called Star Wars, where they tried to take a shot at Reagan for it.
Well, they were mocking it.
They were mocking it. And they said, what a fool. He had this great deal in front of him, and he walked away. And what happened a year later, in 1987? INF was signed. So Trump's playing this smart. Even I'm noticing it now, though. There's a slow turn. The hacks are going to stay the hacks, but some of the more sane, semi-rational people on the left are starting to finally come around and say this might not be as bad as we think it is.
You know, Dan.
Yeah, I was going to say that, you know, Vietnam, we've talked about this as a great backdrop for this historic summit. What really turbocharged Vietnam's economy was when we normalized relations in 1995. And if there's ever a better, I think, example to North Korea, which is an outlier in arguably one of the most economically vibrant regions in the world, this is it. And I think that's what presents us this outstanding opportunity. And I would just echo what Dan just said. The president was very measured in his comments. He said, we're in no rush. I want to do the right deal. That's precisely the way to begin these bilateral discussions today.
Let me go to Sebastian Gorka. You know, a lot of people, I've known President Trump for a lot of years, long before he ever, I think, ever thought about Dr. Gorka running for president. One of the things that he says in the art of the deal is up to the last second, you always must be willing to stand up and walk away from a deal. You don't do a deal because you want a deal. You do a deal because it works for you. And if it doesn't, you got to be willing to walk away.
Yeah, it's one of the very first rules, and I tell everybody, you've got to read The Art of the Deal. One of the first things he said, you have got to be prepared to walk away from the table at any point, never be so vested that they can have leverage over you. Sean, can I tell you a quick story? I had a caller on my radio show today who was a Democrat, and he said, today I am becoming a Republican. Why did he do that, Sean? Because he watched the Cohen testimony and he was absolutely disgusted. He said, we have one man, the president, who's trying to bring peace and stop a nuclear war. And what are the Democrats doing? They're trying to sabotage it with this circus in D.C. That man became a Republican today because of what the president is doing and what the left is trying to do to sabotage him. You are right there. He's making history, and potentially this is the first time in 66 years that we can bring peace to the Korean Peninsula. Truly historic event.
If you're thinking about future generations, wow, pretty powerful. When you're thinking about potential conflicts down the road and the magnitude of destruction of the weaponry we're discussing here, that would be pretty profound. Stay right there, and I'm going to have a lot to say about what happened in Washington later in the program, my opening monologue coming up. And let me go back to this meeting was scheduled to go on about 40 minutes.
That's right.
About 30 minutes from now, we expect it might end or might be extended. We'll see. And what do we expect afterwards?
Sure.
They met for dinner last night.
Right. And to your point, dinner last night, the president kicked it off and said, look, this is going to be quick. All the business will be on day 2. And instead of being quick, they had dinner for about 2 hours or so. That suggests, A, maybe some warm relations, as we've seen in the public comments, and they getting to know each other more. But B, maybe starting to get some business done. What's going to be in this agreement? About 9:45 p.m. Eastern time, as you say, they're going to have an expanded group with the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, and others getting in there. That's where you start getting into granular detail, perhaps. And then about 11:45 back home, about noon here, you're going to have a working lunch, just like they had dinner last night. We anticipate in the middle of the night back home, there could be some sort of a signing ceremony. That's at least that's what the White House is planning for.
Well, we expect a signing ceremony, and we're anticipating an official end at least to the Korean War, which officially is not over.
Right, and decades later. I want to make a quick point to follow up on what you said a moment ago, too. I did some research as we prepped. What were people saying at the beginning of the Trump administration about this problem? Nick Kristof, New York Times, April 2017. President Trump is scary in many ways, but perhaps the most frightening nightmare is of him blundering into a new Korean War. April 20th, 2017, New York Times. Here we are almost 2 years later, and the opposite is. I'm not saying we're out of the woods. This is a serious, serious threat. But what this president has done in the last year and a half or so has done just the opposite of what the critics predict.
It's fascinating because this happened. This is history repeating itself. And you mentioned Reykjavik, and we talked about Mr. Gorbachev tearing down this wall, the evil empire speech, and even the axis of evil with President Bush. There is a very distinct philosophical difference when it comes to foreign policy. Bill Clinton tried, this is a good deal for the American people. He was trying to bribe Kim Jong-un's father, Kim Jong-il, and it didn't work. And promises that were made were never kept. There's got to be verification. There's got to be on-site demand access, or otherwise it's impossible for any of this to work. It's sort of like peace through strength works. Fire, fury, my button's bigger than yours and it works, and Little Rocket Man, just mocking him for a time. Now saying they're in love.
Would be key. I think IAEA access would be mandatory. And really, I think a ground-level entrance marker for success, Sean, would be, let's just get an account of what they have at this point. He's taking it slow. I like that. There is no need to rush. But let's see what they have, and more importantly, let's see their technical capabilities. There's a lot of uncertainty out there about what even their re-entry possibilities are on their missiles, and that's something we need to know.
Last word we give Dan. Before we go to my opening monologue.
Inventory is obviously really important. I think your point about inspectors, maybe North Korea rejoining the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty would be important because inspectors are mandated if you're accepting that treaty. And then one thing I would also look for is the establishment of working groups, because I think the president and Kim Jong-un will establish a broad agreement, hopefully, and then these working groups will take on those issues over the coming months and manage
media expectations. If it doesn't end this second, this is in progress.
Right.
I think getting the remains back from the 1950s was profound, especially for the families of heroes. I thought getting hostages released, I'm always happy when Americans are coming home. And I also believe that when the rockets stop being fired, amazing, you know, that a little bit of strength and commitment and maybe a healthy dose of fear.
What about Susan Rice saying today from the Obama administration that maybe the Iran nuclear deal is a good model for President Trump in these talks? Does anyone think that's a good idea?
I could see President Trump. He's going to take Air Force One with $150 billion, land it right here, right in North Korea, Pyongyang.
This is a slightly different approach on the ground in Vietnam.
And then all of us, $150 will buy you a lot of peace for about a week. And that's about it. All right, we'll get back to all of you. Thank you so much. We expect updates within the hour. It has now officially begun. President Trump, Kim Jong-un, the summit now in progress. But we begin with a little later opening monologue. I want you to remember this day, and for this reason, because what took place today is a defining moment, both here in Vietnam and back in Washington in American politics, because what we're witnessing are two radically, distinctly different agendas that have been now laid bare for all to see. At the very same moment, as you can see, a historic summit with the President of the United States, who traveled 20-plus hours to Vietnam for a second summit, negotiating a safer world for our kids and our grandkids. What were the Democrats in Washington doing? They purposely scheduled and hauled in Michael Cohen, day 2, today, of course, televised the entire day of testimony, and one more day tomorrow. Why? Just to embarrass the president they have this psychotic hate for. Now, today, on the very day the president is holding this historic, high-stakes summit, think of your kids here. How profound in the future this may be for them or your grandkids. The denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, no more rockets being fired all over that part of the world, threats to here, threats to Guam. House Democrats, they had a more important agenda. They want to embarrass the president while he is now in negotiations and put on a circus, a spectacle in Washington, D.C. So I want you to just embrace the magnitude of this moment, because Democrats clearly are showing their true colors. This should be a day, no red, no blue, no conservative, no liberal, no Republican or Democrat. It's about safety and security for all of us. You know what? If a rocket hits some country, innocent people die. Well, and we could have stopped it because we now have clear evidence revealing exactly what they care about and what they don't care about. Make no mistake about this. Safety and security of you, the people, is certainly not at the top of their list. Instead, they would have put off these hearings to the next week. Now, instead, this insatiable hatred for the president, it now consumes all of their actions, all of their thoughts. As I've been saying, every second, every minute, every hour of every day of every month, and frankly, every year since 2015, and Donald Trump came down that escalator in Trump Tower. And what we're seeing in Hanoi is an American leader fighting to make the world a better, safer place. What we saw in Washington all day, just hours ago, nonstop, was a Democratic Party, a hyperventilating, hysterical media putting politics over country with a political charade designed to just embarrass and trash the president while he represents our country abroad. I thought politics stopped at the, border's edge, right? No. That's why the House Oversight Committee called on Michael Cohen, who was just convicted of lying to Congress, to once again testify now before Congress. And it was just petty partisan politics. It was a circus. Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, I think, put it so well earlier today. Take a look.
What did you talk to Mr. Schiff about? Mr. Chairman, here we go. Here we go. Your first big hearing, your first announced witness, Michael Cohen. I want everyone in this room to think about this. The first announced witness for the 116th Congress is a guy who is going to prison in 2 months for lying to Congress. Mr. Chairman, your chairmanship will always be identified with this hearing. And we all need to understand what this is. This is the Michael Cohen hearing presented by Lanny Davis. That's right. Lanny Davis choreographed the whole darn thing. The Clintons' best friend, loyalist, operative, Lanny Davis put this all together.
Can you imagine if the president gets this accomplished? Wow, some people might say he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize more than Obama. Now, Congressman Jordan was right on. This is nothing more than a political stunt, a hit job, a circus, highly orchestrated by, yes, the biggest Clinton supporter on the entire earth, Lanny Davis, who is apparently representing Michael Cohen for free, along with Democratic members of Congress and, yes, Michael Cohen himself. Here's the evidence. Let's take a look.
What did you talk to Mr. Schiff about?
I spoke to Mr. Schiff about topics that were going to be raised at the upcoming hearing.
Whoa. Not just what time to show up, actually what you're going to talk about?
The gentleman's time expired.
Wow.
Oh, now we tell people what we're going to ask them ahead of time so they can prepare all their answers. Lying Adam Schiff, the biggest liar in Congress, he was caught colluding again. Yeah, remember the tape of him, talking to somebody he thought was a Russian, giving them dirt on Donald Trump? Sounds like collusion. Now, also, Congressman Jordan got to the very heart of why the president's former personal attorney is now participating in this political hit job against his former boss. A whole sad saga. Watch this.
Mr. Cohen, how long did you work in the White House?
I never worked in the White House.
And that's the point, isn't it, Mr. Cohen?
No, sir.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not, sir.
You wanted to work in the White House.
No, sir.
You didn't get brought to the dance.
Sir.
And now?
I was extremely proud to be personal attorney to the President of the United States of America. I did not want to go to the White House.
Now, there are multiple sources that Michael Cohen was, in fact, wanting a job and lobbying for a job at the White House. Southern District of New York, who prosecuted Cohen, they stated, quote, the following: during and after the campaign, Cohen privately told friends and colleagues, including in seized text messages, that he expected to be given a prominent role and title in the new administration. And think about this. That means, under oath, that people cared more about their agenda. Michael Cohen is already going to jail, and they put him at further risk for further charges down the road. Now, that was not the only inconsistency. He also said that the president didn't want to win the election at all, but then later said that Trump wanted to win at all costs, and even hinting at collusion, but without any evidence. He accused the president of campaign finance violations as it relates to Stormy Daniels, also said that the payment was intended to protect his brand because running for president was just one big marketing campaign. If it's a marketing campaign, the only collusion might have been, oh, Trump Tower Moscow, which everybody knew about, and so much more. Take a look.
We know Mr. Cohen has been dishonest in the past. That's why he's going to prison in 2 months. But there are things today that he said during the several hours of questioning that just don't add up either. He said he never defrauded any bank when he was having a conversation questioning from Mr. Comer. Obviously, that's not true because he's going to prison for that very offense. Your first big hearing, the first announced witness of the 116th Congress, is a gentleman who is going to prison in 2 months for lying to Congress. I don't think that's what we should be focused on.
By the way, Fox News just got word that there might be a walk in just mere minutes with the president and Kim Jong-un as the summit is now underway here in Hanoi in Vietnam. Now, here's the problem. Democrats don't care one bit about Michael Cohen and his family. Not at all. Because they were the ones calling him every name in the book until fairly recently. Now, as a result of their partisan hatred of Trump, they don't care about Michael Cohen, they don't care about his family, and they may have put him in further legal jeopardy with the Southern District of New York that seemed pretty mad at him already on issues involving inconsistencies. For nearly 7 hours under oath at the request of House Democrats, Michael Cohen was frankly used by Democrats on this historic day to advance what is now a psychotic hate Trump mob that exists in this country. Yet during all the testimony, we saw no evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. We saw no evidence of any crimes committed by the president. Nothing. In fact, Michael Cohen himself actually shot down some of the hate Trump media mob's favorite conspiracies. I'm sure this is hurting them a little. Watch this.
Questions have been raised about whether I know of direct evidence that Mr. Trump or his campaign colluded with Russia. I do not.
Have you ever been to Prague?
I've never been to Prague.
Never have.
I've never been to the Czech Republic.
Are you aware of anything that the president has done at home or abroad that may have subjected him to or may subject him to extortion or blackmail?
I am not, no.
Okay. Are you aware of any videotapes that may be the subject of extortion or blackmail?
I've heard about these tapes for a long time. I've had many people contact me over the years. I have no reason to believe that that tape exists.
So you had a conversation with the President of the United States about your impending testimony before the House Intelligence Committee. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What was the nature of that conversation?
He wanted me to cooperate.
There you have it. The media's Russian collusion, hysteria, 2 long years, total BS by their new BFF. Nothing more than a conspiracy theory, and just like we've been telling you, but there is real Russia collusion, as we've chronicled. We won't go into that tonight. Without a doubt, Michael Cohen has been through a lot. His family has been through a lot. And Michael Cohen pled guilty to multiple felonies. He's lost his law license. He's now facing 3 years in prison. There is absolutely nothing for him to gain from today's political theater. And the question is, why would Democrats, if they didn't have a political agenda, open up Michael Cohen and his family to even greater risk? You saw all of that play out today in real time. Look at the House Freedom Caucus Chairman, Mark Meadows, issuing a criminal referral over Cohen's testimony today. Great job, Democrats. You really helped out your friend. Take a look.
Did you have foreign contracts over the last 2 years?
Foreign contracts.
Contracts with foreign entities. Did you have contracts? Yes.
Yes.
Why didn't you put them on the form? Nothing to do with lobbying. It says it's a criminal offense to not list all your foreign contracts. That's what it says.
Well, then I'm going to take a look at it before I leave.
You know, it's just one more example, Mr. Cohen, of you skirting the truth.
Now, Congressman Meadows will be with us later in the show, but look at what the Democrats, because they so want to smear President Trump, think they cared about Michael Cohen or his family. Now he's facing more legal issues, more trouble for his life and his family. And that's no concern to the radical far-left Democratic Party, the ones that are so compassionate, willing to smear, slander, besmirch around anybody, any place, any time. That's why radical socialist Congresswoman, watch Tlaib, remember, actually implying that Congressman Mark Meadows was a racist for bringing an African-American former Trump Organization employee to the hearing to vouch for the president. An incredible exchange. Also showed a lot about the chairman of this committee right now, Elijah Cummings. Take a look at this.
The fact that someone would actually use a prop, a black woman, in this chamber, in this committee, is alone racist in itself.
Mr. Chairman, there's nothing more personal to me than my relationship. My nieces and nephews are people of color. Not many people know that. You know that, Mr. Chairman. And to indicate that I asked someone who is a personal friend of the Trump family, who has worked for him, who knows this particular individual, that she's coming in to be a prop, it's racist to suggest that I asked her to come in here for that reason.
Mr. Meadows, you know, and of all the people on this committee, I've said it and got in trouble for it, that you're one of my best friends. I know that shocks a lot of people.
And likewise, Mr. Chairman.
But you are. And I could see and feel your pain. We can just straighten this up.
Mr. Chairman, and to my colleague, Mr. Meadows, that was not my intention, and I do apologize if that's what it sounded like, but I said someone in general.
Yeah, she was talking about Mark Meadows and wouldn't admit it. By the way, what incredible, I don't agree with Congressman Elijah Cummings, incredible grace, class, what a moment for him and Mark Meadows. Now, is that, by the way, the same Congresswoman that called the president a mother bleep during the rally, the same person who pals around with Linda Sarsour, a virulent anti-Semite, and actually wrote a column for Louis Farrakhan's newspaper? She represents all that is wrong with today's modern, extreme, radical, democratic socialist party. It's their actions, their conduct, their beliefs couldn't be any more disgraceful. It's a party consumed by hate, radical ideas. They can't even put politics aside at the water's edge for 1 week and support this vitally important mission of the president abroad. A party now embracing socialism over capitalism, a party supporting an insane Green New Deal over real-life prosperity of the American people, a party voting against a bill that would protect babies born alive that survived an abortion, a party that wants to abolish ICE, even knock down the wall that protects us. We still get 90% of heroin in this country. They want unfettered illegal immigration, open borders. A party that trashed your right to due process unless it impacts a member of their own party. In other words, Kavanaugh versus the lieutenant governor of Virginia. A party that doesn't value the rule of law, our Constitution, our way of life that has created wealth, happiness, prosperity for more people than any other governmental system in the history of mankind, and we have shared it with the world. A Democratic Party, this was a national disgrace today. What we saw in Washington. Joining us now. By the way, we expect any moment, by the way, the President and Kim Jong-un will be stepping out. When they do, we'll go to that. We won't take your time. House Freedom Caucus Chairman Mark Meadows is with us. Congressman, I know you as well. First of all, what class that the chairman showed there.
He's a good friend, and
I thought it was a great moment, a great moment for him and for civility, even when you have strong political disagreements.
I totally agree, Sean, and Elijah and I have been working on the things that we can agree upon, but today he certainly came to my defense, and I appreciate it, and I don't mind saying that not only is he a friend, but he was a gentleman today in the way that he came to my defense.
I thought it was a pretty amazing moment. All right. Now, as I've been saying, I watched this unfold, and I'm thinking, wow. On the day of the president, we have a live shot up. There's John Bolton standing by, along with Sarah Sanders. And we watch this unfold while the president is here negotiating this. Let's get your reaction. And they put Michael Cohen in major legal jeopardy as evidenced by your criminal referral today.
Yeah, so it's not just the criminal referral that I put forth today. There's probably another criminal referral coming. Jim Jordan and I, that he did a masterful job today in really getting to the truth. We're working on that. Our staff is working on that tonight. Hopefully we'll have some additional news tomorrow. But here's the other interesting fact. A lot of people tonight are humming ding dong, the witch is dead, because the witch hunt, the Russia collusion narrative, it was thrown out there over and over and over again, and what happened was there was nothing there. And so for this this unbelievable hearing today, you know, there were a lot of opportunities afforded this particular witness that shouldn't have happened. He had a 30-minute opening. I don't remember any witness ever having a 30-minute opening. It was all trying to spin a narrative to start the impeachment process.
You know, one person that was lied about repeatedly in Hillary Clinton's bought and paid for Russian dossier was Michael Cohen and the president. They share that in common. And to have that debunked and then look at it through the prism of it being the bulk of information for 4 separate FISA warrants, the warning by Bruce Orr that it's unverified, that Hillary paid for it, and Steele hates Trump, and that it was used to deny the constitutional rights of an American citizen and spy on an opposition party candidate in a presidential election year.
Well, you're exactly right. Senator Graham was mentioning this earlier this evening, is, you know, when you look at Prague and what was said, I mean, Michael Cohen said he'd never been to the Czech Republic, and that was part of the dossier. What we find is the more we peel back the onion, the more we realize that not only the dossier was not truth, but it was blatantly false. And so really, I think most Americans saw today for what it was. This was a Democrat really theater that was created to try to make sure that the president had as much injury as he possibly could while he's negotiating in Vietnam on probably the most important national thing we have.
If it was the Republican Party doing this to Barack Obama, what do you think the media, the Democratic reaction would be if, let's say, Barack Obama was in a situation where he was negotiating such an important deal?
Well, it would be a totally different standard, Sean. You know that. I think the real key for any of us as statesmen is when we have our president abroad. We shouldn't be criticizing him. We shouldn't be trying to lay out and undermine his credibility. But that's exactly what happened today, and I think it's a sad day for America.
Well, politics is supposed to end at the water's edge, not today. Today was a national disgrace for them to schedule this during this time. They could have waited. They purposely did this. And sad for them and the American people to get to see 2 different competing visions for what the future of the country is on a lot of these issues. Congressman, thank you for sharing your time with us today. And a great moment, I thought, for 2 people that have political differences, both you and Congressman Cummings, and I applaud you both for that.
Well, thank you, Sean. Take care. We're hoping for the best today.
Everybody should be. Yeah, that's right. Should be something for everybody. We bring in now Senator Lindsey Graham from the great state of South Carolina. Senator, you were extremely outspoken today about what was happening in Washington versus what we now see unfolding live at this very moment, which is Kim Jong-un, President Trump, now negotiating the denuclearization of the entire peninsula. Thoughts?
It was disrespectful to President Trump. It undercut our foreign policy. I talked to President Trump last night. He didn't appreciate very much having this hearing while he's trying to get the North Koreans to give up their nuclear arsenal. I can only imagine if we'd pulled this stunt, what would be happening to us on every major network in the country. So I'm very disappointed.
Senator, if I may, if I can, there is, so Kim Jong-un and the president, they spent about, well, 34 minutes or 30-some-odd minutes alone together. As Ed Henry just told us moments ago, that they're now going to bring in, Ed, their teams.
Yeah, these are their interpreters walking with them. This is the pool at the historic Metropole Hotel. And they're going to be walking over to the expanded group. And there they are, as we said earlier.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo
and his counterpart on the North Korean side. We expect maybe someone like Mick Mulvaney, John Bolton, who we saw waiting just off stage left there a moment ago, might join as well. So they're just about almost on time. They were talking about 9:45 a.m. local time here, 9:45 p.m. Eastern back home, that they would be having what they call an expanded bilateral meeting with the top
I don't know pictures if you can interpret it, but a lot of smiles, a lot of personality. Look, you can see Kim Jong-un seems very relaxed. It's very cordial.
The president
friendly.
said a few moments ago when reporters were there, I wonder if Chairman Kim is willing to say what he said to us at dinner last night. I'm going to let him decide whether he's going to say it publicly. He didn't quite get there. He just said something very general, Chairman Kim, about how he expects positive results. But you can clearly read that President Trump, and you'll have a chance in the interview to ask him, suggested that at dinner last night, Chairman Kim went much further in private than he has in public.
You know, a lot of times, Dan Bongino, a lot of these things, as you can see, they're now walking in with the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, and his counterpart from North Korea. Oftentimes, there are predetermined outcomes, not necessarily here, except for maybe ending the Korean War.
Yeah, matter of fact, most of the time, bottom-up diplomacy is exactly how it occurs. You have your lower-level bureaucrats lay out the groundwork for a meeting before it ever gets to the level of president. He's taken it in a different direction. He said, we're going to handle this from the top.
Let me go back to Senator Lindsey Graham back in Washington. It's so deep and it's so profound, Senator, the potential that what can happen here.
Right.
Look, I'm not Pollyannish. We know that we've got to have, this has got to be a verified deal. There's got to be open access and inspections on demand, or else it's not going to work for anybody.
Right.
But it's important.
Well, the question is, why are we having this meeting? I mean, why is Trump meeting with North Korea when North Korea wouldn't meet with anybody else? I think President Trump rattled North Korea. I think they believed that President Trump would use military force to stop their nuclear missile program if he had to. He took them seriously, and Trump's giving them a way out. Chairman Kim, if you're smart, you'll take the way out given to you by President Trump. If you're actually trying to play the guy, you're going to regret this effort.
You know, it's so funny. I mentioned having known the president for over 2 decades and have some insight into his thinking. In my personal opinion, this is just purely speculation, that we were likely just 1, 2, 3 rockets away from the United States taking that out of the air and a major escalation.
Okay, I talked to President Trump about a couple hours ago, right before he went to meet with the North Korean leader. I talked to him all last year. The fire and fury rhetoric was sincere. The North Koreans believed that if they fired another missile, they were going to get attacked. They were going to get attacked, and here's what I would say. The president's giving them a chance to maintain their security, increase their prosperity, and in return, he wants them to give up their nukes. This is the last best chance for peace. If this doesn't work, we're not going back to the status quo. So everybody in America and the world should pray for a good outcome here. But the reason that Kim is at the table, he believes that Trump is hell-bent on stopping him one way or the other, and the best way is a win-win.
You know, so there's always the expectations, and Dan Bongino, I thought, brought up a good point. When Reagan walked away from the table at Reykjavik, yet the media went insane. When Reagan talked about the evil empire, they went insane. When Bush talked about the axis of evil, they went insane. When he challenged Gorbachev to tear down the wall, there seems to be a pattern. You know, we've been around too long. But there seems to be this pattern, and that is that the Democrats feel, and it's just, I find it Neville Chamberlain-ish and Pollyannish and naive and frankly dangerous, that somehow if they bribe dictators and the world's despots, Bill Clinton tried it with Kim Jong-un's father, Kim Jong-il, and we know that Obama tried it with the mullahs in Iran. Oh, if we give you $150 billion in cash and other currencies, maybe you'll like us? No, they're still chanting death to America and threatening to annihilate Israel and wipe it off the map. But strength seems to get their attention. And I believe that you're right. The president absolutely was believable in the hearts and minds of the North Koreans and Kim Jong-un.
All I can tell you is if Susan Rice gives you some advice, Mr. President, don't take it. The Iran deal has not worked out well for everybody in the
Everybody here is laughing. That's really good.
Well, so the bottom line is if a guy's threatened to cut your throat, don't buy him a knife. John Kerry walked through glass to get a crappy deal with Iran. Trump is smart enough to get out of that deal. And he says, I'm not in a hurry. I want a good deal. I want a real deal. A real deal with North Korea is they give up their nukes. We end the Korean War, and we have peace and prosperity for everybody on the peninsula. A bad deal is to continue for North Korea to build up their nuclear nuclear forces, and Trump's not going to let that. He's called the question.
Hey, you want to make the media's head spin? You really want the hate Trump mob to go insane right now?
It's not that hard.
I haven't. Now, Obama got a Nobel Peace Prize for nothing, just for showing up.
For not being Bush.
Okay, yeah, exactly. So imagine, let's hope for the best. I thought liberals imagined a world without nukes. All right, how about a world with fewer nukes to start? Imagine they get this deal done and it's verifiable, on-demand inspections, and imagine it's done. Are they going to have to now melt down? People may actually have real heart attacks if somebody says, if it happens, maybe Trump gets the Nobel Peace Prize.
A world in which
would be a good thing for the world and our kids.
A world in which Donald Trump gets the Nobel Peace Prize is probably more dangerous in the eyes of the liberals than North Korea and having nukes. But the point is that he's on the verge of a breakthrough, I hope, but he is not going to let this go forward the way it's been in the past. Either we're going to have peace or we're eventually going to have a military conflict. I think North Korea realizes that's the two choices they have.
All right, Senator, thank you. I know, and you're right about what happened today. What a dramatic comparison. How shallow, pathetic, and frankly sad. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, while the president is right here in Hanoi, in Vietnam, pursuing peace, denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, to create, a safer world potentially for your kids and grandkids, Democrats back in Washington, we saw grandstanding over what? Phony Russia collusion, something they've talked about for 2 years. Their newly embraced best friend, who they hated up until recently, Michael Cohen, the circus, the sideshow, all day long as the president's here. Geraldo Rivera pointed out, quote, the backstabbing, personal betrayal of Trump will fail. Sarah Carter wrote the headline that Michael Cohen's testimony read like a jilted lover. John Solomon even compared it to the famous song, Don't Cry for Me, Argentina. Joining us now is all three of them. Fox News investigative reporter Sarah Carter, John Solomon from The Hill, and Fox News correspondent Geraldo Rivera, Geraldo at large and best-selling author. Geraldo, let me start with you. You're so passionate about this. You saw this go on today. It didn't have to happen today. They want to play politics. Okay, not today.
I think it was pathetic, the timing. You used the word shallow and pathetic. I absolutely agree with that, Sean. They easily could have postponed it 48 hours, 72 hours to let the world focus on this profoundly significant event. But there's something that I need to tell people that they have to be reinforced about. A week ago, McCabe, the former acting director of the FBI, was promoting his book, saying that it was possible that the President of the United States was a traitor, was an agent of the Russian Federation. He said it was possible. He was asked the question repeatedly. It was possible. It was possible. So you had President Trump being suspected of treason just a week ago. Now where are we? Zero. Nada. None. Absolute this much evidence of collusion with the Russia. There is no Russian collusion. It is a fantasy.
Look what he said
and it is about time that we... Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, no, it's about, finish that thought. It's about time, I'm sorry.
No, I just think that when you consider how far we've come in just a week, now we have Michael Cohen saying there's no collusion. We have Michael Cohen saying he was never in Prague, Czechoslovakia. We have Michael Cohen saying that he was never told by President Trump to lie about the timing of the negotiations for the Moscow Tower. This thing is over. Let's get it behind us. Now it's all going to be about Stormy Daniels. You're going to see how MSNBC and CNN go seamlessly from Russia collusion to, oh, he paid off the porn star. It is pathetic.
Yeah. It's pathetic. Journalism's dead, and 2 years of lies, hysteria, conspiracy theories. Oh, never mind. Let's just go on to the next conspiracy theory. Don't Cry for Me, Argentina, Jilted Lover, Sarah Carter, John Solomon. I'll start with both of you. John.
Yeah, I did a little Broadway today. I'm sorry about that. Hey, today is going to turn out to be a good day for the president, despite the Democrats' efforts to paint him in a different light. He's probably going to show everyone today the difference between peace through strength, he and Reagan used, peace through pacification, which was the last administration's policies. But now think about what happened at the hearing. Today was the death of the collusion theories. Michael Cohen, the ultimate insider who knew everything about Trump, has no evidence of collusion. The president didn't ask him to lie. He puts a stake in the heart of one of the major claims of the Steele dossier, which the FBI used to justify investigating the Trump campaign at the end of the election. This is a good day for his legal defense, and I think the American people will see through the political efforts of the Democrats and declare that this scandal is over.
All right, pretty harsh words, harsh columns from both of you, but as Geraldo laid out, I won't repeat it all, Sarah. This, in terms of Russia collusion, was a devastating day for the Democrats on top of what is this was a sad day for them. This was a really bad decision. The optics of what they thought was important on this day and what the president is doing politically, I don't think the American people, I don't think they're going to really go buy into this at all, and they're going to see this for what it is.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Sean. This backfired on them miserably, miserably. All we saw, and I think Geraldo brought up a really great point about McCabe. You know, McCabe, once again, throwing out disinformation and lies, speculation about the possibility. I mean, here is the deputy director of the FBI throwing out rumors and lies with absolutely no evidence, not one shred of evidence whatsoever that there was any type of conspiracy with the Russians. And then we see Michael Cohen, a broken man, broken, a jilted, I describe him as a jilted lover, just lashing out at President Trump continuously. And then
Sarah,
he has
they don't
to take
care about Michael Cohen. Look at what they did to him today.
Of course they
put
don't.
him in more legal jeopardy.
Absolutely. He's in absolute legal jeopardy now on a couple of fronts. And what we did learn is what, you know, John Solomon brought it up, as well as Geraldo, as well as you, Sean, is that there was no evidence of any type of conspiracy or collusion. He has no evidence. It was all speculation on his part during his testimony. And the other thing is that the dossier is proven once again to be totally debunked. A dossier written by a foreign agent, a former British spy, with information from Russian agents. It is a lie.
Clinton
and remember this,
paid
Americans
for Russian
know
lies.
who really and Americans know who really colluded. And it wasn't Donald Trump's campaign with the Russians. It was the Hillary Clinton campaign, the DNC, the Never Trumpers, all of the people that wanted to go after Trump during the 2016 campaign. They colluded and put disinformation out on the American media in an effort to destroy a duly elected president.
You know, Geraldo, you think about that. There really was collusion, and there really was Russian influence in the election. Hillary paid for it. Nobody even looked into it. People now are beginning to compare and contrast the hysteria, the reporting, as we say, the hate Trump media mob. They've been wrong. They have lied. They've ignored what John, Sarah, Greg Jarrett, and so many of us have been talking about. And that is the biggest abuse of power by only a few at the top that tried to rig an investigation, exonerate somebody who even the chief counsel at the FBI thought should be indicted for the Espionage Act, and then they don't use this information. The American people were fed those dossier lies before the election. It was weaponized by people that were warned it was unverified and Clinton paid for, and Russian lies, and they still used it to get a warrant and deny an American citizen and his constitutional rights and get in a backdoor way to the whole Trump campaign. It all happened.
The problem, Sean, now is that we cannot take a victory lap, because even though the Russia collusion has been absolutely debunked, even though their best witness has testified to the heart of this matter, the Democrats will not admit it. The left will not admit it. You can see the newspaper headlines in tomorrow's papers in the country already. What they will do is retreat to the little stuff. All right, so there was no Russia collusion. Our president is not a traitor, but he cheated on his income tax. He got a deal on a golf course in the Bronx that was untoward. Maybe he did, something else. He chiseled somebody. They're going to try to kill him with 1 million little knife cuts. Now the killer blow failed. Now he survived.
When do they get held accountable?
Pick him apart.
You know, John Solomon,
In
Sarah
2020.
Carter, all of us, you know, we have all unpeeled the layers of an onion. 2 years ago, it started. In March 2016, we began this process with the abuse of power, surveillance, unmasking, leaking raw intelligence. Look where we've come all this way, proving the dossier was used and a FISA court fraud committed at a high level, ignored by the special counsel, John Solomon, investigating Russia collusion. Hillary paid for it. They never verified it.
Yeah.
And they bludgeon this president with lies, hysteria, and conspiracy theories.
Well, I think, you know, Geraldo's right about one thing. The Democrats and their allies in the liberal media are going to continue to try to change the narrative, move the goalposts. But there's a very important point about the acceleration of the boomerang from the greatest political trick in our lifetime. And that is, as soon as Mueller finishes his investigation, if the president is not facing any criminal charges, but I don't believe he will, the president and his team, for the first time, can go on offense. They can declassify documents. They can debunk things. And the power of the bully pulpit of the White House, when the president can declassify and get us all the truth, can do a lot to blunt whatever tricks the Democrats have in their bag next.
Yeah, Sarah, we'll give you the last word on this.
Well, not only should they declassify, the White House should declassify the documents, and the American people should know the truth. I believe in full transparency here. But I believe that Attorney General, you know, William Barr, and all of the criminal referrals that have been made to the Department of Justice, those should move forward, and they should hold people accountable. And if these people that we have spoken about in the past, whether they were high-level officials at the FBI or at the Department of Justice, they should be held responsible if they committed crimes.
Amen.
And we should know about it. And the American people have a right to know about it. So it doesn't happen again, Sean. So this doesn't happen again.
That's the important part. We can't have a dual justice system, and we can't have people that literally set somebody free because they like them over another candidate and exonerate them when you know they're guilty. James Baker, chief counsel, FBI under Jim Comey, wanted to indict Hillary Clinton. We learned that last week. Few in the media touched it. And the media, too. We will hold them accountable in ways that we have planned coming up in the days, weeks, and months ahead. But as we've been telling you, while all this history hopefully is being made as we speak, right now as the summit is ongoing. Michael Cohen was before Congress some 7 hours today. Despite, of course, he had been convicted of lying to Congress. The hate Trump media mob, giddy, absolutely giddy about his testimony. No surprise there. Joining us now with reaction to that, former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer and the Hill's Joe Concha. Sean, let's start with you. Very predictable, but also a really sad day, and now maybe we understand why the media's trust of the American people has never been lower.
Yeah, look, let me just draw the contrast. During the Obama years, every 24 days on average, we saw a missile to get tested, fired from North Korea. Since President Trump's taken office, it's been 457 plus days. This president's getting results for the American people, for the peninsula, for the region, and for our world. And instead of focusing on this historic event, we're talking about Michael Cohen. And frankly, what are we talking about? And I think your other guests have pointed out, we're talking about the Trump Organization, what documents he did, what NDAs he signed, and what didn't. This was all supposed to be about Russia collusion. And Michael Cohen, as flawed as he is, admitted right off the bat that there was nothing substantive that he could show on Russia collusion. So we wasted all this time talking about something that wasn't what the focus of this week should have been. They could have held this hearing any time they wanted. They chose today. And as a former White House staffer, I can tell you, as much as they're focused on what's going on in North Korea and furthering the president's agenda and goal of making it safe for the peninsula, the region, and the world, you can't help but make sure that you are keeping an eye on that. And that distraction means that that's one more minute, one more second, one more hour that they're not focused on the goal of a safer world. And I think that got lost in the discussion today, Sean. You've brought it up, some of your guests have. But for one moment, understand that the president and his team have to. It would be malpractice not to listen to the charges that Michael Cohen is bringing forward. You have to know what he said. You have to be able to respond properly. And so by doing that, these people that are 12 hours ahead, have already been working constant hours, nonstop for days on end, are now forced to focus on something other than making a deal with North Korea.
let me get Joe Concha in because we're just running out of time this hour, and the summit is ongoing. I think this is a defining moment, Joe Concha, that they have now sunk this low on this day. Politics ends at the water's edge? No, apparently not.
Well, I think it shows, Sean, that there is sizzle, and that's the Cohen testimony, and that's what everybody flocked to today. And then there's steak, and that's what you're seeing on the left of me on your screen in terms of President Trump and Kim Jong-un. Remember where we were in August of 2017 to Sean Spicer's point, where North Korea will be met with the fire and fury like the world has never seen. That's President Trump's words. Kim Jong-un launching missiles over Japan, threatening Guam and the United States. And now to see these images and to see where we are, it truly is historic. And look, if I'm writing the story tomorrow, what's my lead? It's this quote from Michael Cohen. Questions have been raised about whether I know of direct evidence that Mr. Trump or his campaign colluded with Russia. I do not, and I want that to be clear. That should be the takeaway from the testimony today, like your guests have been talking about, because that is the whole ball game. If you don't show Russian collusion between the president or his associates and the campaign and the Russians, then you're going to have a boomerang effect, Sean. If Democrats pursue impeachment, you're going to see what happened with Bill Clinton. The day after Bill Clinton was impeached, his approval rating was 73% in Gallup because Republicans overplayed their hand. And if Democrats and the media overplay their hand on things like campaign finance violations, you're not going to see 73%, but you will see an upward tick of the president's numbers.
Oh, it'll be. I agree with your analysis completely. Joe, Sean, thank you. Quick wrap up. We'll go Ed Henry.
Yeah, look, this is going on longer. We expected them to come out already and speak to the media. They haven't done that. We're being told they've gone behind closed doors. The president and Chairman Kim with a larger group. That suggests maybe they're making progress.
Dan Bongino.
It's been 400 days since a missile launch, while the Democrats have tried to propagate the collusion hoax, which fell apart today.
Yeah, Dan.
You know, the relationship between President Trump and Chairman Kim is so important. I think at the forefront of Kim Jong-un's mind is the lesson of Muammar Gaddafi, who gave up his nuclear weapons and was overthrown. And so we see these President Trump walking around the pool with Chairman Kim. It's just setting the stage for these negotiations today. That was critical precursor for anything to happen.
All right. Thank you all. You've been great analysis. Congratulations on the nomination. We're really happy for you. All right, we're going to wrap up. We are in Hanoi, ongoing right now as we speak, the summit between Kim Jong-un and the president. Immediately after that, I will have the opportunity, exclusive one-on-one interview with President Trump. He will take us behind the scenes. We'll talk exactly about what was going on, the progress that they made, what it means for the future. We'll air the full interview tomorrow night, 9 Eastern, right here from Hanoi. We'll always be fair and balanced. We're not the hate Trump media mob. Let not your heart be troubled. Laura Ingraham is in our nation's capital.
Hannity, imagine if what happened today on Capitol Hill with the Cohen testimony, something like this had happened when, let's say, Bill Clinton or Barack Obama was engaged in a globally significant event, such as a summit with one of our great adversaries. I mean, the media
Laura,
would be going nuts. They'd be going crazy. But that's exactly just the timing of this lack of grace. I mean, just that alone is enough to drive people crazy. What are your thoughts on that?
You have hit the key point here, Laura, and you're right on the money in your analysis. I am saying, and I believe truly, this is a tipping point day for this country, because the country gets to see a split screen, a president dealing with something as deep and profound as the safety and security of kids, grandkids, and future generations. And these guys in Washington couldn't pick any other day to try and bludgeon the president like they've done for 3 years. That, with the new Green Deal, as the American people understand it, this is not going to end well for them as a result of this. This is going to be an important day we'll look back on.
Now, I agree with you. You know, I'm speaking at CPAC tomorrow. There are a lot of great conservative speakers.
I'm going to miss it.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know. You're busy there, but I'm going to give people a preview. What I'm going to say is these are the good old days right now. There has almost never been in my lifetime a better time to be an American. If you want to work, if you want to get a job, you want to better your life, take care of your family, I don't see how it's possibly going to get much better than this. It's pretty darn good. So if people want to throw that all away and on some pipe dream of what the Southern District of New York or Mueller's going to turn out, then I guess they can try that, and then they're going to throw that out, and we're going to go back to conservatism.
Can I just say something? You know what you're saying? you are saying something that is so profound, and it is missed by so many, and that is, this is about the people in this country. We had 13 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more in poverty, 8 years of Obama failure. Now we've got millions off of food stamps, millions out of poverty, 5.5 million new jobs, energy independence.
But it's like none of it happened.
So many promises kept.
No, it's like none of it ever happened, Hannity, because it happened under Donald Trump. And in this hour, we're going to examine Cohen, Korea, the Korean Peninsula, the China a part of all this, which I think a lot of people are overlooking, because this is all interwoven in our very complex relationship with China, which Donald Trump is also taking on.
I want to compliment you, though, before I go. And I know I'll never take any more time. I want to say something. You know, you, me, Rush, Mark, there's others. I won't mention everybody. There's been a few of us that have known for our entire careers, for me, 30 years in radio, 23 years at Fox, we have known conservatism works. You have been a leader in the forefront of that movement, and it's now on display in ways we haven't seen since Ronald Reagan, which is great for the forgotten men and women of this country, and you're dead on accurate fighting for them.
All right, Hannity, thank you very much, and good luck tomorrow. We'll be